Hey guys, and welcome to another creepy stories on a stormy night. And tonight is a very special night. It is Chelsea's birthday. So happy birthday, Chelsea. I hope you had a great day. And Chelsea requested that I do a creepy stories, but of my own. Now I have spoken about these in the past, but very, very long time ago. I'm sure a lot of my new viewers have never heard these stories, so there's a couple I'm going to tell you, maybe a few. I used to live in this old house in East London on the end of this street, and it had a garage on the side. It was at the end, the last house on the left. Beautiful house, Victorian, I think. It was built, in that sort of time. I think, anyway. I'm not sure. It could be later than that, but I don't know. It was a lovely house, anyway. And it had a living room, and then it had another room, and then it had a kitchen, and then it had another room at the back. It had loads of rooms. It was like a little mini mansion. 3 bedrooms, big bedrooms, even the small ones. Were big. It was like a beautiful place. I loved it there when I was a kid. But yeah. Anyway, the first thing that used to happen in this house was whenever it was windy, there was this banging coming from the wall. Now, what was next door to the living room was the garage from my American friends. It's a garage. And it was this pounding on the wall, only when it was windy. And when it first happened, my dad said, well, that's coming from the garage, the garage. So he got up and went out into the garage. Now you could get to the garage from the front or the back. He went into the garage, and we're still sitting in the living room still. And there's this pounding on the wall, we could hear it. He came back in about 3 minutes later, and he said, well, there's nothing in there. He said, I can't see anything or hear anything in the garage. So it sort of first freaked us out a bit, but my dad being my dad, who wasn't afraid of anything, in the end we just made fun of it, or my dad did. And so whenever it was windy, this banging, this pounding on the wall, my dad would say, the little man's banging again, hitting the wall with his little hammer. And we would all laugh and laugh it off, but we never ever found out what it was. Never. There was nothing in the garage. There was nothing there that was making any noise at all. It was really strange. Yeah, so that was one of the things. Another thing was one Boxing Day, which is my parents' wedding anniversary. My dad bought my mum this beautiful musical box. The ones that you wind up. You wound it up, and then you open it, and it's I think it was a couple dancing. I can't remember exactly, because it was many, many, many years ago. I was only about 8 years old. Couple dancing, and they would be dancing around to this really nice, soft, gentle music. I can't remember what the tune was, but it played this tune on the little metal roller, and you have the little pins on it that make the dinging sound, and they sound really good, the ones. So we had this music box and it was really nice. So my mum had it open and it's playing and then it eventually stops, don't it? And she went upstairs and put it on top of a wardrobe that was in the bedroom. Now at the time, because there was 3 bedrooms and there was 4 of us, me and my siblings, sometimes the girls, because I had 2 sisters, would want their own rooms, and rather than share, so sometimes they would share this big room at the back, and sometimes I would have the box room, and sometimes they would have, their own rooms, and I would share with my parents. So they had their bed and I had another bed next to it, this great big room. So sometimes we would do that. This music box stayed on this wardrobe all the way through the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and about a week or so after that. Anyway, one night in January, one cold night it was too, I'm laying in bed asleep and I wake up to the sound of this music box going, just playing this tune and the little people dancing on the top. So I immediately, because I was only young, freaked out and got really scared, pulled the covers up over my head, because then you're safe. And I eventually went to sleep. The next morning I come downstairs and my mum and dad were already up. And I come in and my dad said, "Did you hear that music box go off last night?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I don't know why." He said, "It ain't been wound up or nothing." He said, "It's been up there all that time." So that was kind of creepy as well. I don't know what was going on there. And then like another one finally was, I think it was the 1977 Queen's Silver Jubilee, and what we had back then in the day was you used to have all these floats going by. So you'd have them with people dressed up as Disney characters and all these things, like the floats that go by. They're like these lorries with like a theme going slowly down the road. They'd close all the roads off as well, which, it's a great day. And then you'd have a pram race or a baby carriage race, and I remember you had these 2 nuns. There was 2 blokes dressed up as nuns, and they'd made the pram or baby carriage look like a church, and someone had to sit in it and the other one had to push. Again, all these different things, and that was great fun. But you then had a big massive street party where they would close off the streets, put all these tables out, have a DJ playing all this music, and all the kids from the streets would all sit there, and we'd have food and drink, and it's a brilliant time. Anyway, this one particular street party, which I'm sure was that one, I don't know, because we used to have a lot back then. One night, like the party was still going on, and I went out my back garden or backyard. Now we had this big concrete wall that had like sort of barbed wire going across the top as well. The wall was about 6 foot at least, and plus had the barbed wire. And And all of a sudden I hear this thudding. It's like thud, 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 thud. And I looks up at the top of the wall, and there's someone I can only describe as Slash from Guns N' Roses. It's what he looked like. You know Slash from Guns N' Roses? The great big guy in black with the black top hat on. And it's like thud, 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 and he was thudding along the road, and he was massive, he was huge with his big top hat. And that's what he looked like, long black hair and long black leather jacket. And I thought, wow, who is that? It really caught me attention. So what I did was run through my garage, because you could just run through it and get to the street from the front of the garage. So I've run through it. I thought, I've got to take a look at this. I'm going to get a closer look at this. Open the door, and I'm looking, waiting for him to come past the street. Nothing came. So I've just run to the corner, looked down from where he was walking. Nothing. I looks down the other end of the street. Now this was a good 100 yards. Nothing. I'm looking around the whole of the street with all the party going. I would have seen this guy. Nothing. It was so creepy that I never saw him. You know, and I to this day I don't know who it was. It was as if he just disappeared. You know, he was thudding along, you know, thud, 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 thud. I run through, seriously, it takes about less than 10 seconds to get to my street. And the street was all closed off too, so you couldn't have got in a car or nothing and driven there. Everyone was all parked. And he couldn't have walked down to the other side of the street that quickly. But yeah, big, he must have been about 6'4", with his big black top hat, long black hair, and what looked like one of those coats, you know, the black leather coats, you know, Panini, and a damn fine coat it is too. But yeah, and I never saw him. I don't know what happened, where he went. It was really weird. But yeah, I had lots of strange goings on in that house, but it was a beautiful house. I loved it there. I had so many great memories. I used to play in the garden. The garden was massive as well. Or the backyard, and it was my sort of jungle, and you know, I used to pretend to be Tarzan, and that was my jungle, and I set up this rope that I could swing around as well, around these big like wooden poles that we had, that I never knew what they were ever for, but you know, yeah, and I used to swing on the washing line, and we had this old, it was an old like bed, not mattress, the holder of the mattress, and it had all these like springs in it and stuff, and it was like a big web, so I hung that on the wall, on the fence, where we had the, you know, the bars that come up with the like wire going through it, the barbed wire. Hung it on there, and I'd be sitting there hanging off that. But that was my web, pretending to be Spider-Man. Oh, great days. Yeah, beautiful as. It's such a shame, because in the end it had to be pulled down. They ended up pulling down all the houses there in that street. It didn't survive, unfortunately, and they built all these new houses, and you know, which I did end up moving into, funnily enough, just around the corner, but that's another story. But yeah, so there's some of those creepy things that happened, quite weird things, but they kind of creep me out, especially that music box, because it hadn't been wound for so long. It's all like all of a sudden just started, I woke up and it's playing, and I thought, oh my god, you know, what the hell. And my next door neighbour as well, funnily enough, leading up to that, and had her house blessed she saw Jesus at her window like this, which, you know, frightened the EBGBs out of me as well. So, you know, and I thought, then that's happening. But anyway, if you got any stories, guys, if you have, let me know in the comments. I'd love to read about them and know about them. Enjoy this stormy night. I'll leave it running for a bit to help you sleep. You know, so don't have